Friends, Shavuot begins tonight. It's a beautiful holiday. In the Torah's own framework, it signifies the time of harvest. What we planted at the very beginning of Pesach, what we've measured throughout these weeks, and what we celebrate by harvesting is the work that we have put into this process for a long time. And each year in turn, that remains true. In the rabbinic imagination, perhaps because we were no longer on our land during the thousands of years of exile, the Torah came to signify the moment where we stood at Sinai. Shavuot means weeks. We counted the weeks from liberation, Pesach story, until Revelation, which is the Shavuot story. And I wanted to share just a small moment of the text that we will read tomorrow morning. It's from Exodus. It's from the scene of Revelation itself, standing at Sinai. And Moses brought out the people, Vayityatzvu b'tachtit har, and they stood at the base of the mountain. Tachtit, which means base, is similar to the modern Hebrew word tachat, which means tush. And we know that because tachat in Yiddish is tuchis. So, now you've got some Yiddish, you heard your rabbi say tuchis, and now we're talking about Sinai again. We stood at the base of the mountain, and that's how we typically envision that scene. Everyone was standing there. Somehow there was room for all. Somehow we all heard Revelation in a language that worked for us. Even babies were able to internalize the experience. Even the birds felt the air quiver. But what is really interesting is that the rabbis, thousands of years after Revelation and thousands of years ago from our standpoint, re-understood the word b'tachtit har. Where did they stand? Now, before I tell you what the rabbis imagined, let me remind you that the text that tells of Revelation itself is intense. The mountain was shaking like a volcano. This isn't the gentle experience of Sinai that you and I maybe learned as children or think about. This was a very intense experience. So standing at the base of the mountain being offered a covenant, who could possibly say no? It's just too much. Well, in the text, we hear of this kind of power disparity between the people and God. God descends on the mountain, and God is intense. People are scared. The rabbis later re-understand the word b'tachtit har, stood at the base of the mountain, to not mean that they stood at the base of the mountain, but it means, according to the rabbinic midrash, that God took the mountain and turned it upside down. And when God held the mountain over their heads, God said, "Do you accept my Torah? If so, good. If not, this will be your grave." And the intensity of that, the coercive nature of that, perhaps says a lot about how the rabbis were feeling in the world. It was a shaky world, and they felt that the fate of the universe was on their heads. But here's what I want to share with you. The rabbis go further. They say, well, if that's the case, that God held the mountain over our heads. And in the original text, remember, the intensity of the moment makes it hard to imagine ever saying no. So the coercive nature of this original contract, what we call the covenant, the rabbis say this means it's not binding, because if there are any lawyers in our community right now, you know that a contract entered into under duress is not binding. The rabbis suggest that Sinai itself didn't hold. The contract is not holding. They said, but later in time, in the book of Esther, during the days of Esther and Mordechai, the Jews, and this is chapter 9 of the book of Esther, the Jews accepted upon themselves all the obligations. And one of the things that is so interesting to think about is that the rabbis choose to say that the Jews reaffirmed their covenant with God using as a proof text a book, the book of Esther, where God's name never appears. Actually, Eloise, just as you said it, free will acceptance. As opposed to standing at the mountain in the ways that the rabbis understood it, or re-understood it, where there was no free will. You can't choose not to accept something when a mountain is over your head. When eventually the rabbis re-understand an affirmation of the covenant from a human component, from a human act of free will, what we call agency, They choose as a proof text for a relationship with God an entirely human story. Let's translate that into our moment and then wish each other a Chag Sameach. How powerful it is to see covenantal relationships. Hi, Amy. Mazel tov to your son and daughter-in-law on their anniversary. Good story. Kim, this is also for you. How beautiful it is to see the rabbis reaffirm the relationship with God in the context of an entirely human story. And then, the Kabbalists, after another moment of dislocation and destruction, this time the expulsion from Spain, took the image. Remember Sinai first like this? Then the rabbis turn it like this. The Kabbalists turned this image of a mountain suspended over the Israelites' head into something actually incredibly beautiful. Follow me there. Yes, this is the mountain. Yes, this is where the Jews are. And this is where God is, standing under the mountain with us, eye to eye. Eye to eye. And God and we share a ketubah, a wedding contract. What do we call that covenantal contract? Torah. As opposed to seeing what is suspended over our heads as a threat, though sometimes the world can feel like that. The Kabbalists say the Torah is a love letter that we share with God, and that God shares with us. And God stands in that space with us under the mountain. It is a gift, friends, to see Torah as a love letter. As a love letter. So I wish for us tonight, as we celebrate the giving of the Torah, we celebrate the harvest of so much work, we prepare to continue giving this gift of love to each other. May we find love when we find real wisdom, when we find each other. May we make sure to use Torah, spiritual wisdom, and community as a gift of love to everyone who seeks. May we make sure that the experience that people have of the kind of learning that we do is an experience of love and welcome. We stood around the mountain. It's intense and scary. We wield Torah as a gift for healing. Julianne, for your mother. May her surgery be successful. May she heal quickly. This beautiful community that we have created 803 times since March 18th of 2020. We've wielded Torah as an instrument of healing, of convening, of gentleness, of warmth, of care. May Torah, in your experience, my friends, continue to be a love letter between you and the divine, and between us. Let's sing our way into a good day, friends. Let's sing our way into a beautiful Shavuot. We won't be broadcasting tomorrow because it's Chag, but we will see each other on Monday for Memorial Day. Let's sing.
כי מציון תצא תורה על השם בירושלים כי מציון תצא תורה על השם בירושלים כי מציון תצא תורה על השם בירושלים תצא תורה ודבר השם בירושלים כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר השם בירושלים כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר השם בירושלים כי מציון תצא תורה
Chag Sameach, friends. Have a beautiful Shavuot. See you on Monday.